Looking back, some of the worst weightless advice that I got came from people who meant well, but actually it just left me in a cycle of confusion and guilt. Welcome to today's episode of Body Beyond the Scales, where I'm going to be talking all about the worst advice that I received when I was trying to lose weight. So, let's get into it. It's going to be an exciting one today, and I'm really excited to talk about my experience here of losing weight. If you're not familiar with my story, I lost 50 pounds back in 2019 to 2020-ish, and I've kept it off ever since. So yeah, let's get into it and go through the worst weight loss advice that I've ever received. So starting off strong then, the piece of weight loss advice was to stop eating eggs. And this came from my mum. And this as a piece of weight loss advice was there from, I think she picked it up in like a magazine. And the reason that it is there is because back in the 80s and the 90s, and I think the early 2000s, it pushed into as well. We had this idea that we needed to eat low fat, and it was you need to cut out fat because fat makes you fat. And we now know that that's not the case. We know that it comes down to calories and it's excess energy, which is surplus calories, which causes your body to retain it has to be stored somewhere, so it's caused to be held as fat. So we know that fat doesn't make you fat. That's not how it works. So fats are actually super useful. They have a few different uses in the body. One of them is vitamin absorption. So when you have your vitamins, you need to have them with if you have adequate fat in your diet, you'll be fine. But it just helps that absorption of the vitamins. We also need to make sure that we have omega-3s, which are like a type of fall under the fat category, and these come from fatty fish. And these are super important for brain health and just overall bodily function. So it's really important that we don't cut fats out. And like I said, this advice came from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and it's not very useful for losing weight, especially when a few of those foods that I mentioned there, and when it comes down to eggs and fatty fish, if we cut those out, we're missing out key nutrients, especially protein that's falling under that category. So instead of looking at what to stop eating when it comes to that case, I'd actually encourage you to think, am I eating healthy fats? Particularly, am I getting my 2 servings of omega-3s across the week? That'd be one thing that I would encourage you to think about. The thing is, when it comes to losing weight, fat has the highest calories per gram. So fat has 9 calories per gram. What is really important is that if you have a diet that's made up of fat, it's going to be very, very low volume before you've hit your total calories that you're aiming for. So what you want to do is make sure you have a nice mix and the fat forms around about 20% of your total daily calorie intake, but the rest of it is going to come from protein and carbohydrates. If you have a high preference for eating a high fat diet, then there's ways to work around that. But I'd say to make sure that you're getting in plenty of carbohydrates and plenty of protein, carbohydrates, especially in the form of fruit, veg, and salad. So let's talk through the worst piece of weight loss advice I got. Number 2, have high calorie days and low calorie days. So this came from, I think it was a magazine. I'm pretty sure I saw a magazine and it was Philip Schofield in it. And he basically said that it would be doing 5-2. So you had these high days and these low days, these really high days and these really low days. I believe at the time it was women ate 400 calories and then 2,000 calories on your normal days. And that was the 2 low days and 5 high days. This to me is now looking at it from a again, a nutritionist perspective, this is really bad weight loss advice because it ends up leaving you feeling like you need to be super restrictive on certain days. And on the other days, you tend to end up overeating. And this cycle of overeating just effectively falls into a slight binge restrict cycle. We have the days where we eat loads, and then we have the days where we eat very, very, very little. And I think if we could be completely devoid of emotion around food and around those experiences and function the same because we'd hit the right amount of calories across the week, I'd say, yeah, let's go for it. But I think unless you are an absolute robot, high days and low days don't really work. I have one client that I've worked with probably around 150 to 200 women. And I would say, I've had one person throughout that time that's worked well on high days and low days. And she is just an absolute robot. That is why. So it's not really something that I would advise unless you feel like it gives you the freedom in your life. So high days and low days are kind of problematic. Well, they're problematic for a few reasons. One, because of that binge restrict cycle. But 2, we're not training your body to get hungry at certain times. Your body thrives in predictability. So if we're not giving it that predictability, we're not giving it those predictable eating times, you're making it very hard to know when to get hungry. And if you've gone from having a high day and then you have a dramatic low day, you're not going to feel like you've got energy. You're going to be hungry because your body's not going to know what's going on. And it's going to be like, well, I had a meal yesterday. And yeah, it's just a bit of a stressful structure. If you're also trying to fuel full performance, that's going to be very, very difficult, because on those days that you're eating 500 calories, 400 calories, or whatever your low calories are, I'd like to say as well, the person that I've worked with that we've done it, we've never gone that low. We have low calorie days, but they're not like 400, 500 calorie days. So the high calorie days and low calorie days are, I think, just a poor piece of weight loss advice for the majority of people. 95 to 99% of people, I don't believe, like, need this technique. I don't think it really works. So yeah, I think it's really important to just make sure you're balancing out across the week. Now, there is this idea called calorie banking, where you take 100 calories from, say, Monday and then put them on the weekend. You might take 100 calories on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then put them onto Friday and Saturday. So you add an extra 200 calories to your Friday calories and an extra 200 to your Saturday calories. I don't like this approach because I think it causes you to be more restrictive than what you need to be. And I think we can make more informed choices around food and allow for more stability across the week. I think it starts to create those stormy seas that I mentioned rather than those steady seas. So if we think about these calories and calorie banking, what I'd rather you do is think about choosing how you want to navigate something. So are we going to navigate something at fat loss? Are we going to navigate it at maintenance? Or are we not going to think about it? Now, each of those are going to have repercussions, one being like the amount of flexibility that you have, and the other being the repercussions that you have longer term. So what does that mean in terms of total calories? But it's important to remember across all of this that calories work over time, not overnight. So whatever you do on average over time is what you will get. So in kind of to summarize that point, we don't really want to be having high days and low days. We want to be having consistency throughout the week. There may be slight flexibility, slight variations. However, in general, we want to be eating roughly the same amount of calories every single day at similar times. If you can then make within that day, you're eating more predictable, so eating at the same time every day, your body will like you even more. So, bad piece of weight loss advice that I got, number 3, was that there are good foods and bad foods. Now, this probably came from some sort of slumming called Karen. I definitely with the use of the word sins. But the idea that we have good and bad foods, I think, starts to prescribe a moral compass to food. And that's just simply not the case. We don't have bread that's serving time. Like, we don't have chocolate that's like, committed a criminal offense. This is not the case. So we want to recognize what that actually means. There are foods that are more optimal for your health, and there are foods that provide fewer benefits for your health. And I think that's where we really need to think about context, and we really need to think about the foods that you're consuming, not for it's what is it giving you and what is it not giving you. At the moment, there's this whole idea that ultra processed foods are around, and we don't know what's in the foods that you're eating, and look at the labels on the back of foods. And this, I think, is really creating a toxic diet culture. And it is just toxic diet culture, and it is this idea of clean eating is coming back, and it's going to lead to orthorexia, which is this obsession with clean eating and this obsession with basically eating like pure foods. And this is now, I believe it's now being categorized as an eating disorder. So I think this is really important that we don't fall into the trap of being panicky around ultra processed foods, and that we understand that there are no good and bad foods. Now, the reason why a food may be considered bad is often because of what it lacks. So if you imagine a bar of chocolate, it lacks fiber, it lacks protein. It doesn't really add anything of nutritional benefit. If we think of an apple, it has micronutrients in there. It's got some carbohydrates in there. There's a lot more going on. It's got some fiber in there. So all of these things that are contained within that are useful and they add something to your body. If we think about an egg, it's got some healthy fats in there, it's got proteins in there. If we think about an avocado, it's got healthy fats, it's got plenty of fiber. So you can see that there's lots going on across different foods, and they're adding things into your life. But it doesn't make them a good food or a bad food. It just means that there are foods that are more optimal for your health. So instead of seeing foods as good and bad, I would see your diet as what can we add into it? What can we add in that's going to make your life better? And I'm just about to do a video on this, so I assume by the time this comes out, it might not be out yet. But if you go over to my Instagram, my TikTok, my YouTube, or my Facebook. I was like, there's another platform that I post on. If you go over to one of those platforms, you will find a video within the next week from the time of this being posted that I'm going to be talking about basically things to think about, the 3 Bs when it comes to food. You want to think about hunger busting foods. So are you eating protein and fiber, which are going to help bust that hunger? They're also going to come with other benefits. The protein is going to help you it's going to help you stay full of longer, but it's also going to help you maintain and grow muscle mass, which is super important for things like your metabolism. Two, and your own general health. Two, you're going to think about fiber in there as well. That fiber is going to help feed your gut. It's going to help keep things moving smoothly. And it's also going to help you, if you're eating high amounts of fiber, you're also going to be getting a wide range of micronutrients in. And again, you're going to stay fuller for long. So the next thing that you want to think about is boosting foods. And these are energy boosting foods. Foods like carbohydrates, especially complex carbohydrates, are going to really help you boost your energy, especially if you've used that energy up in something. So if you use that energy up by doing activity, I went for a run this morning, I will have burnt through my carbohydrate sources. So I need to replace those carbohydrate sources by eating complex carbs. I've had some bread with dinner. With lunch. If I say dinner, I'll appeal to all the Northerners, but anyone in the South will be like, "What on earth meal were you on about?" When I had it with my lunch. So that has helped me refuel, and that has helped me reboost my energy levels, because glucose is your body's preferred source of energy, and that's what carbohydrates break down into. You then want to think about food to your brain, and this is where your healthy fats come in. So thinking about your omega-3s. So I feel like we've really covered good foods and bad foods there, and it's really important. So if you are stuck on those, think of the 3 Bs and make sure that you are eating those throughout your day. Another thing to note on that is that for most people, their brain prefers to add things in rather than take things away. You'll have heard me talk about habit holes, where we take things away and say, I'm not eating this. And all that does is it leaves a habit hole. And what we don't want is a habit hole to be there, because it's just going to leave you walking along and you're going to fall right down the habit hole. So we want to make sure that whenever we take something away, we replace it, and we do that by adding something else in. So if we want to eat less chocolate, that's fine, but we can do that by proxy by adding in more of something else. So we're going to focus on adding in more fruit, adding in more vegetables, adding in more protein. So we're going to focus on adding things to your life rather than taking things away, and by proxy you will usually reduce what you are consuming. So yeah, it's a really useful way to kind of like think about things. So coming on to a bad weight loss advice part 4, you need to exercise to lose weight. Now, you might have heard me talk on the podcast before about the benefits of exercise, and that exercise helps to burn calories, which is true. Exercise will burn calories and it will help you lose weight. However, I don't think we should focus on exercise being purely to lose weight, mainly for the reason that if we exercise to lose weight, when you have lost weight, you won't keep exercising because you don't want to do that. Therefore, we want to really focus on what are the benefits that it brings. And also, exercise brings so many benefits that weight loss is just like such a small part of it, and it's only coming to that because of the calories that you're burning. So when it comes to like the benefits of exercise, we want to be thinking about things like getting stronger, improving your mobility, improving your bone density so that you don't completely fall apart and break when you get old. All of these things are so important because they help you have a long and fulfilling life in which you have a good quality of life. I think one thing that's really like important to remember is that the body that you're in now is a product of the years that you have spent like moving it. Unless you are sub the age of 20, then it is literally just usually a product of, being young. But the second you start to like age in any capacity, your body is going to start to experience like these sort of signs of being alive for a long time, which is such a privilege to get. But we want to recognize that like the better care that you take care of your body, the better care that you take of your body, you're going to be in a better condition for longer. You're going to have a better quality of life for longer. So that's key. Like thinking about those things about how you can maintain that longevity within your life is just going to give you the best quality of life for the longest period of time. So that's the benefits of exercise, especially outside of weight loss. I do think we should mention that like exercise does burn calories, but it doesn't burn as many calories as what people think. A typical gym session, let's say you do a 45 minutes to an hour long gym session, for most people is going to burn maximum like 200 to 300 calories. And if you're only going to the gym twice a day, twice a week, 3 times a week, you're not burning that many calories from going to the gym. So it's almost not really making that much of a difference. Now, if you do a lot of cardio, that's going to burn more calories. However, we also, again, in these situations, like if you do more cardio, chances are your appetite's going to start to increase, and you're just running yourself into the ground. Like it's not an effective way to, I would say it's not an effective way to budget for weight loss. If you want to lose weight, what I would suggest again is consistency when it comes to exercise. And I would suggest to do that in the form of steps. 8,000 steps a day it has been really associated with increasing your chance of like longevity, and walking fewer than 4,000 steps a day has been linked to basically popping your clogs earlier. So if you don't want to pop your clogs earlier and you would like to live for longer, walk 8,000 steps. And if you can get to 8,000 steps plus, you'll still reap more benefits from that as well. So when it comes to exercise and thinking about that, I would suggest getting some sort of gym sessions in there. when you're losing weight, your body will try to take the energy that it needs, the gap, so the energy deficit, will try to take the energy from the most expensive part of your body. And the most expensive thing to keep is muscle. Muscle burns more calories than fat, therefore it wants to get rid of that first. So what you need to do is tell your body you need to use a muscle. So if you are lifting weights and you are eating plenty of protein, your body is less likely to get rid of that muscle as you lose fat. So your body will go to fat sources instead. So it's really important to use those muscles so that you don't end up just losing muscle. And like whilst the scales might be moving down, you're not losing fat, you're just losing muscle, which is pretty useful. So yeah, we want to make sure that we are getting in plenty of movement, but thinking about how we can do that in a way as well that's going to be beneficial. And lifting some sort of weights is going to be super useful. Again, as I mentioned, bone density as well. Lifting weights, doing weight bearing exercises is super useful for bone density. And then finally, bad piece of weight loss advice number 5. That sentence didn't feel like it made sense, but we're going to go with it. You need to overhaul your life to lose weight. Again, this is something that basically my whole ethos is against. I don't think you need to overhaul your life. I think you need to make changes that integrate within your life. I think that you can truly have it, like, I think you can truly change your life, but I think it changes one step at a time. It changes with small habit changes, not through these big overhauling, I changed everything tomorrow. Like, that's not how it works. Like, it's you start making small changes over time, they add up, and it really, like, it compounds. And that's really the thing that you need to think about here, is how can you get it to compound? I also think that when we make overhauling changes, we feel like we have to be perfect. And again, we come down to that consistency, not perfection mindset here. That's why we need to think about how can we stay consistent over time. So just to recap on all of this, when it comes to weight loss advice, like a lot of people who give weight loss advice, they do mean well, like with the advice that they give, but they're often based on like fear or extremes or just old weight loss advice. Like it's not what's relevant. And I think diet culture has a lot to blame within this. And I think diet culture is like, it really like, it really, sticks its claws into everything that it can do. So it's really important to just go, where am I getting my weight loss advice from? Is it a reputable source? And do I feel like it's actually benefiting me? The second thing I think we want to think about is just like, if you do any of these things or if you saw any of these things, it's not your fault. I thought these things, like this is weight loss advice that I've heard and I believed for a while. So like, it's really important to recognize that, again, this is diet culture. Like, this is poor advice being given to you. It's all right if you believed it at some point. Now what your job is to do is, now that you recognize that is not useful advice, is to move forwards from it and to find something that actually works for you. And what helps me is, again, just focusing on those basics, like, and then focusing on that consistency over perfection. If we can focus on just building those foundations, you wouldn't build a house on dodgy foundations. So why would you do the same with your health and fitness? If we can focus on those foundations and making those really strong roots, those base habits, then we'll make a massive difference. And if you've got any questions on any of this, or you'd like to know more about working with me and so that I can help you through this process so you don't have to navigate through all the bad weight loss advice, then feel free to drop me a message on Instagram. But otherwise, have an absolutely fantastic rest of the day, and I will catch you in the next one.